Alright guys, we are going to do our combined applications conversion worksheet. At the top of the worksheet it says reduce all fractions to the lowest terms and round all decimals to the hundredth. I want you to cross off hundredth and put thousands. Okay, I have created my own little grid on my board over here. Now with these type of conversions, the easiest thing to do is to remember that each of these categories has a buddy system. Okay, if you remember our directions for a ratio, they were basically a fraction kicked sideways. So my fractions and my ratios are buddies. Okay, and then my decimals and my percents are buddies. Now, before I can ever get a ratio, I must get a fraction first. And before I can ever get a percent, I must get a decimal first. So I'm basically going to work with these two categories. Once I get those, I can get their buddy. So if I go off the worksheet, I have a fraction for the first one of 3/4. 3/4. Okay, well, who's its buddy? Its buddy is a ratio. So I just have to kick it sideways. Whatever's on top gets read first. So 3 to 4. Perfect. Now of the next two categories, I always have to get a decimal first. So I got to turn my fraction into a decimal. The easiest way to do that is to divide top into bottom. So 3 divided by 4 gives me 0.75. Now to get my percent, all I gotta do is move my decimal 2 to the right. 1, 2. And that gives me my percent. Perfect. Second group of numbers is a ratio of 1 to 10. Alright, well, who is my ratio's buddy? Fraction. So now whatever's read first is just going to go on top. So I line it up 1 over 10. Perfect. Now I have to get my decimal next. Okay, so I'm just going to divide top into bottom. And then to get my decimal buddy, I'm just going to move it 1, 2 again. Perfect. Now, next number is 55%. So, 55%. Okay, who's my percents buddy? Decimal. So, if I don't have a decimal, technically it's right there. So now I'm just going to go 1, 2, 1, 2. Give me 0.55. Who do I have to get next? Fraction. Okay, so I'm going to convert my decimal into a fraction. So I'm going to have 55 over tenths, hundredths, so over 100. Okay, notice I put it smaller up in the corner because those directions say reduce all fractions. So I have a 5 and a 0, so a 5 can go into every 5 and every 0. 55 divided by 5 is 11. 100 divided by 5 is 20. Kick it sideways. Now be very careful on this because on the quiz and on the final exam or any homework you come across, if you did not reduce that, you'll get this box wrong, but you'll also get this box wrong. Really important to always reduce when you're in the fraction category and always round when you're in the decimal category before you get its buddy, or else you get 2 boxes wrong. Next up I have 0.65. Perfect. Okay, decimals buddy is going to be a percent, so we're just going to 1, 2, 65%. Okay, next I have to get my fraction. So I'm going to put 65 over tenths, hundredths. Again, it's small up in the corner, so I can reduce. I have a 5 and I have a 0. 5s can go into every 5 and every 0. 65 divided by 5 is 13. 100 divided by 5 is 20. Kick it sideways will give me my ratio. Perfect. Next number we're going to go over is 1 to 250, the ratio. Okay, ratio's buddy is going to be my fraction. Line it up, whatever's read first goes on top. Perfect. Divide top into bottom. And that will give me, now this is the one I had you change the directions for, because the directions originally said round to the nearest hundredth. If I round this to the hundredth, that 4 is not going to change that 0. So my answer would be 0. And I wanted an answer to represent for this square. I also wanted an answer for your percent square. So remove 1, 2. So I have 0.4%. Great. All right, I do want you to add one more row on the bottom of yours, and then I'm going to walk you through another one that you might see on your homework. Not on this worksheet, but it will be on your homework. Very similar question to what you'll see on your homework. So go ahead and add that bottom row to the bottom of your worksheet. All right, so the question that may be similar to what you see on your homework is going to be similar to saying 1/2%. Okay, so percent's buddy is decimal. Now, when I was taking my percents earlier, I was just moving them, and that would give me my decimal. But I don't have any decimals over here. I have a fraction. So what I got to do first is I got to take this fraction, I got to make that into a decimal first, and then I can move my decimal. So anytime we take a fraction and turn it into a decimal, divide top into bottom, and that gives me 0.5%. Now that I have my decimal, I can move it. 1, 2. And that number will give me my decimal. Okay, now that I have my decimal, I can then get my fraction. So I'm going to put 5 over tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Perfect. Reduce, divide by 5, divide by 5. Okay, I'm going to give me 1 over 200. Take it sideways. Now, what you might have seen in the homework will say convert 1/2 fraction, or I'm sorry, 1/2%, convert it to that. Okay, notice we put it in the box here. I cannot take that 1/2% and go straight to this box. Can't do it. Okay, because I have to have these two first. So I had to first get my decimal. Once I got the decimal, then I had to get my fraction. Once I got my fraction, then I got my ratio. I can't go straight to a ratio. A common mistake is people will see this and they'll kick it sideways. That's not correct. So be very, very careful that if it has this, make this grid. If you make this grid, you know that if I have a percent, I have to have my decimal next. If I have a decimal, then I have to have the fraction next. then I can get the ratio. So do each of those steps individually. If you have any other assistance that you need on any of this worksheet, please let me know.